to the MAP Talk on Affordable Housing in Tucson. My name is Jennifer Pullen. I'm the Making Action Possible, or MAP Program Coordinator, and a Senior Research Economist in the Economic and Business Research Center at the University of Arizona. I'd like to thank our community sponsors. Our sustaining sponsors include the Tucson Electric Power, Thomas R. Brown Foundation, Freeport McMoran Foundation. We'd like to thank them for their continued support of the MAP dashboard. Additionally, I'd like to acknowledge our partners, the Community Foundation for Southern Arizona, Pima Association of Governments, Southern Arizona Leadership Council, Sun Corridor, and the University of Arizona. The MAP partnership is a cross-sector collaboration in Southern Arizona that represents the nonprofit community, local government, local business, economic development, and education. I'd like to mention that the MAP dashboard recently won an International Impact Award for our demonstrated ability to drive positive community change in Southern Arizona. This was awarded to the MAP dashboard by the Community Indicators Consortium, which is an international group of indicator projects like the MAP dashboard. If you'd like to learn more about this award, you can visit the MAP website. And in our library, there's an archived article with more details about both the organization and the award. Before we begin discussing housing affordability in Tucson, I'd like to first kind of provide you with a quick overview of the MAP dashboard and how you can navigate the website and find our latest feature articles and core indicators. As you can see across the top, the MAP dashboard is organized into 6 different categories: the economy, education, health and social well-being, infrastructure, quality of place, and workforce and demographics. Each of these 6 categories contains 6 core indicators that help to tell the story about how the Tucson metropolitan area is doing across these different categories and across these different socioeconomic indicators. The MAP's mission is to measurably improve Southern Arizona through data-driven collective civic action and education. We do this by providing these core indicators and feature articles. It's a place where our elected officials, our business leaders, our nonprofit, and generally engaged community members can go to get a sense of how Tucson's doing across compared to 11 other metropolitan areas, places that are similar to Tucson, like Denver, El Paso, similar in population, similar demographic mix, or have a large research university or military installation. We also allow you on the map to compare Tucson to the US, to the 10 western states, so Washington down through Texas, and the 15 Arizona counties. So there's a wealth of information across these 36 core indicators on the MAP dashboard, but we don't think of the MAP as a data warehouse. We think of it as an engaging and compelling place that you can go and you can learn about why these different indicators are important to measure and track for our region. In addition to the 36 core indicators that we update annually, you'll find that we write several feature articles each month, and you can find those recent feature articles here in the slideshow. This you can click through about 6 different slides, so you'll have about 3 months worth of articles listed here. We write 2 articles each month on a variety of topics. It can include things like this community report. These community reports look at the city and town data in Southern Arizona. So we have data for the city of Tucson, Marana, Oro Valley, Spadrita, Green Valley, Douglas, and we look at things like education, poverty, housing cost burden at that community level. Down below this rotating slideshow, you'll find here in this feature article slot, this is our most recent feature article. This one was, when I took this screenshot of the homepage, this was a recent article on home prices. You can now find this article up in the slider, and the data that we're talking about today you can find here in the most recent feature article slot. Next to that, you'll find an Explore Your County map. This is a great place to go and get some kind of top-level vital statistics at the county level. You can find things like median household income, poverty, employment growth, population growth rates at the county level, and you can compare and contrast across the different 15 counties. Here's an example of some of the recent feature articles that we've included on the MAP dashboard. We had a rental affordability article, an article that explored Arizona's role in border trade. We've had several articles, they're called community spotlights, on how local organizations and companies use the MAP dashboard data. We have had multiple community articles. As I mentioned a few minutes ago, we had an article that explored job growth. And then down here in this slide, you'll see for hotspots in 4 Arizona cities. This is an article that was published on the map that's called a white paper. We commissioned white papers from University of Arizona faculty to write reports in areas of their expertise. This particular article explored the relationship between alcohol serving establishments and crime. And in particular, it explored 4 different regions in Arizona that have a high relationship between alcohol serving establishments and crime. So all of our articles can be found archived in the library on the map dashboard. You can find that link just below the search bar up in the upper right-hand corner. If you go there, all of our articles are organized by the 6 categories, in addition to additional categories that include white papers and Southern Arizona communities. You can also find all of our published map talks in the library section of the dashboard. So now let's talk about what we're all here for today, and that is affordable housing in Tucson. And you can see here by the kind of that tagline and the image, affordability in Tucson varies significantly by income. That's something that we would expect across the board, across all different regions, but it's particularly pronounced in Tucson, particularly at lower income levels, as we'll see today as we work through the data. So the first thing we're going to start with is prices. Affordability is made up of 2 components: prices and cost, and income. So this is the median home price in Tucson in 2018. This looks at recently sold single-family homes and what that median price was in 2018. We can see that for Tucson, it was $223,000. That was up about $13,000 from 2017. That resulted in a growth rate of 6%. We see Tucson has a pretty low median home price relative to other pure metropolitan areas. Got El Paso down here at the bottom, then Albuquerque, about $40,000 less than the median price for the U.S., substantially below some of our other pure metropolitan areas: Austin, Salt Lake City, Portland, Denver, 3 times below San Diego, which has a median home price of $634,000. So if you just look at prices, it looks like Tucson might be affordable, but that's misleading because there's 2 components that go into affordability: prices and income. So once you factor in income, the story changes a little bit, as we'll see. Before we move into some of the affordability measures, I want to just kind of highlight what's gone on in Tucson and Phoenix for median home prices over the last 18 years. So here we see that build up in home prices for Tucson, Phoenix, and the U.S. Prior to the housing bubble. Here's that sharp increase that we saw between 2004 and 2005 across all the geographies. Again, another pretty good increase between 2005 and 2006. And then you see here is kind of that top of that housing bubble. And then here is that decline during the recession. And then since 2011, as we've come out of the Great Recession, we see that home prices have been steadily increasing in the U.S., Phoenix, and Tucson. There's something that's really important to note on this particular graph, and that is that here, prior to the housing market bubble, you see that median home price in Tucson and Phoenix was below the U.S. median, and that during that time, during that sharp increase, that the prices in both Phoenix and Tucson accelerated much more rapidly than they did in the U.S. And then they also fell much more rapidly than they did in the U.S. during the Great Recession. So we have a much larger rise and fall during that time period pre-recession and during the recession than the U.S. did. And what that means is it has taken Phoenix a lot longer and Tucson a lot longer to get back to those pre-recession home levels. So this top price here in 2006 for the U.S., they regained that pre-recession median home price in about 2014, 2015. And Phoenix, it took until 2018. And Tucson hasn't quite got back up there yet. We're still about, $10,000 to $20,000 less than that price that we saw in 2006 and 2007 before prices started to decline. So not quite there yet, but getting close. And then, as I mentioned, that increase between 2017 and 2018 of 13,000 resulted in a 6% growth rate. That was pretty modest growth when compared to other regions around the Western U.S. Las Vegas had growth of 13% last year in their median home price. Colorado Springs are at 11%. Tucson's growth was just a little bit faster than the U.S., which was around 5%. So right in the middle of our pure metropolitan areas, modest growth for Tucson between 2017 and 2018 in home prices. So next we'll switch to an affordability measure, and this measure takes into account those median home prices. This affordability measure is looking at how affordable recently sold single-family homes are to someone earning the local median family income. So two things, this is looking at homeowners, this is purchase of homes, so affordability of purchasing a home, and to those earning the local median family income. So we're going to talk about two different income measures today, family income and household income. Family income is traditionally higher than household income. Family income includes households that have multiple individuals related by marriage, birth, or adoption, whereas just households, individual households, could include those families and include single individuals. So household income tends to be higher than household income. Family income is higher than household income. In Tucson, it was $60,000 in 2017, where household income was about $48,000, so $12,000 more. So what this tells us is that 66.2% of the recently sold homes in Tucson, single-family homes in Tucson, were affordable to someone earning $60,000. Tucson does really well in this particular measure, just second to Albuquerque. We have seen a decline between 2017 and 2018. This is because home prices have risen faster than wages. Remember, affordability is really essentially two components, prices and income. So prices are rising faster than wages. That's why we saw a decline of about 5 percentage points between 2017 and 2018. This decline has happened across the board for all of our metropolitan areas. Tucson was significantly more affordable, a larger percentage of homes that were affordable compared to the U.S. and many of its pure metropolitan areas. But it's important to remember that this is looking at those with a median family income of $60,000, which is relatively high for Tucson, especially when compared to median household income. And it's also important to consider that Tucson has a lot of just single individual households because we have a large percentage of college students, and we also have a large percentage of retirees, which can be single family households as well. So if we look at what's gone on in the trend for housing affordability, we see basically the inverse of home prices. So typically we see as home prices increase, affordability decreases. This is that pre-bubble. This is during the recession when we saw home prices falling faster than wages. And so we see that houses became more affordable in all of our drivers, Phoenix, Tucson, and the US. And then here since 2011, we've seen this slow decline in affordability. And this right here is because our home prices have been increasing at a faster rate than our wages have been. So affordability declining across the board since the end of the Great Recession. Our next affordability measure is the share of rentals that were affordable in 2015. So this is the available stock of rentals in 2015 and what percentage of those were affordable to someone earning the local household income, so the median household income. So again, this is about $12,000 less than the median family income. This includes all households, households with individuals that are college age, households that are individuals that retire, 65 plus retiree type individuals, and it includes those family households as well. So this is all households. And what we see is when we use that lower income measure, and we also look at rentals, that Tucson's ranking among pure metropolitan areas falls significantly. We see that we are second from last in the share of affordable rentals at 76.2%, whereas Salt Lake has almost 95% of their rentals affordable to someone earning their local household, median household income. So two things that are important here. This is using that lower income measure, median household income, also looking at rentals. Now we're taking into the cost for rentals and lower median household income. So that is the difference in our ranking with affordability compared to homeowners. So just to recap, we're using two different measures when we calculate affordability, with the percentage of recently sold homes that are affordable. We're using median family income, which in 2017 was approximately $60,000. And then with rental affordability, we're looking at all households, which is median household income. And that was about $12,000 less in 2017 at $48,000. So when we calculate affordability, we assume that a household or a renter is not going to spend more than 30% of their income in housing costs. So those two different affordability measures that we looked at assumed that when purchasing a home, you're not spending more than 30% of your income in the mortgage, the insurance, taxes, and the utilities. And then that rental affordability measure assumed you're not spending more than 30% of your income in rent and utilities. Because when you spend more than 30% of your income in housing costs, whether you're renting or owning, you are considered housing cost burden. Households that are housing cost burden have a more difficult time paying for other necessities, things like healthcare, childcare, transportation, food. So we measure this housing cost burden. We can look at the percentage of households in a region that pay more than 30% of their income in their housing costs. And when we compare Tucson to our other metropolitan areas, we see that 34.1% of all households in Tucson metropolitan area spend more than 30% of their income in housing costs. This is ranks Tucson near the bottom compared to other pure metropolitan areas, with San Diego having the highest housing cost burden percentage of households at nearly 45%, and Salt Lake City having the lowest with about 27% of their households paying more than 30% of their income. So there's definitely some work to do here for Tucson in getting this percentage of those households spending more than 30% of their income lower. We want to see a lower number here. We can break this down by 10 years, so we can look at the difference between households that own and households that rent. And what we see in Tucson is that households that own, only 23.4% of those are housing cost burden. So only 23.4% of homeowners pay more than 30% of their income in their housing costs. And then renters, it's at almost 53%. This difference happens across the board. We see it in the state, we see it nationally, we see it in other metropolitan areas. There's a variety of reasons. It could do with rental prices. It could do with renters just choosing to spend more than 30% of their income because they don't have to incur those other housing costs, things like purchasing a furnace or painting or putting a new AC unit on their home in the future. So they may just choose to spend more. It also may be that renters in a certain region have lower income than homeowners do. So there's a variety of reasons that influence this difference, but this is a difference that is seen nationally and in other metropolitan areas. Next, we can break housing cost burden down by income. And this is where it gets really interesting, because what we've seen is that home prices, median home prices in Tucson are low, and that we have high affordability when we look at the median family income of $60,000. So we know that when we look at rental affordability and we use that lower income measure, $48,000, that our share of affordability really declines relative to our pure metropolitan areas. So those lower income individuals. And so we can look at this and see what happens for our housing cost burden, what percentage of households are housing cost burden by income level. And as you'd expect, it declines as income increases. But what you see relative to the US is very interesting. And the 75,000 or more and the 50 to 75,000 income brackets, which that median family income is included in the second highest income bracket, we see that the percentage of households that are housing cost burden is much less than what we see nationally. So Tucson is an affordable place for those in these higher income brackets, especially relative to the US. If we look at those two lower income brackets, however, we see that 14.6% of households in this income bracket are housing cost burden, compared to 11.9 nationally, and in 20 to 35,000, it's 10.1% compared to 8.6% nationally. So what this tells us is that in the lower income brackets, we have less affordable housing than we do nationally, because our lower income bracket individuals have higher housing cost burdens. A larger percentage of our households are paying more than 30% of their income in housing costs relative to the US. So while we do very well here in the upper income brackets, like our housing affordability measure showed us, we really struggle, our lower income individuals really struggle to find affordable housing in the Tucson metropolitan area. The last thing we'll look at is this median monthly cost. This is some data that was published by the Harvard University, and it looks at the median monthly cost for homeowners and for renters. And so we see, while we're looking at costs, the median monthly cost for a homeowner in Tucson is $924. This is pretty low relative to some of our peer metropolitan areas. And if you look at that, homeowners, for renters, it's $880, which is slightly less than it is for homeowners. Again, still pretty low relative to our other peer metropolitan areas. But like when we discuss the median home price, costs and prices are really only part of the equation. We have to factor in those income measures. And when we look at median household income, we explore it on the MAP dashboard as one of our core indicators. Tucson has one of the lowest median household incomes by a lot when compared to these other peer metropolitan areas. So when you factor in income into the equation, it really starts to tell a different story about affordability in Tucson, especially for those lower income individuals in our region. So just to recap here, we see that Tucson region has relatively low home prices, relatively low median monthly costs for both renters and homeowners, but prices and costs are only part of the equation. You have to factor in income. And when you do so, we see that Tucson is affordable for those earning that median family income, that $60,000 or more to $75,000 or more. We really have a lot. We have a really low percentage of those that have a housing cost burden, pay more than 30% of their income in their housing costs, especially relative to the US and other peer metropolitan areas. We also see when we explore housing cost burden that renters have a really high housing cost burden relative to owners, but this is consistent across the nation and across our peer metropolitan areas. And then those in the lower income brackets really experience a high level of housing cost burden relative to the US and relative to our peer metropolitan areas. And this is really the key point here, is that those in those lower income brackets struggle compared to their peers across other metropolitan areas like Denver and Portland and Salt Lake City and Albuquerque. So you have to think, start to ask the question of what are those communities doing to provide better affordable housing for their lower income individuals that Tucson is not. And so again, this is relative to the US and other peer metropolitan areas. Our lower income individuals really struggle to find housing that where they pay less than 30% of their income in their housing costs. So that's all I have today for the housing affordability and kind of the housing discussion. And I'd like to thank the Arizona Daily Star. We publish 2 MAP features each month in the Star. We have a business section feature the last Sunday of each month. This highlights some of the recent monthly statistics you can see here, including median home price. So you can look at that annual change every month. We also have job growth and unemployment information in here, and then a short little piece about one of the indicators on the MAP dashboard. We also have a health section feature that is published the first Monday of each month, and this just highlights different health and social well-being indicators found on the MAP dashboard. I encourage you to engage with us. We have a monthly newsletter. You can visit the website, scroll down to the bottom of the homepage, and subscribe for updates. A great way to stay up to date on these MAP talks, on upcoming articles that we have, or data releases, presentations that we give for the public. So sign up for that if you already haven't. And then if you're ever on the website and you have questions, please submit the Ask a Researcher form. One of the researchers within the Economic and Business Research Center will respond to your question. And then lastly, I'd like to mention up the next MAP talk we have August 24th at 10 a.m. This will be on the manufactured housing gap in Tucson and Pima County. We'll have a guest speaker, Dr. Mark Kier. He's assistant professor, School of Geography and Development at the University of Arizona. He wrote a recent white paper titled The Manufactured Housing Gap in Tucson and Pima County. That white paper can be found on the MAP website. It's currently in the rotating slideshow, also in the library, but he'll be discussing the results from that white paper during this MAP talk. So I encourage you to sign up. Registration is available on the website. It's also will be announced in the next newsletter. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and thank you for joining us today.